Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on virtual reality campus tours. My name is Vincent Flores. So we want to welcome you to this session on virtual reality tours. It's a tool that we can use in your virtual advising. It's a tool that you can use in person at your centers. And with that, I want to hand it over to Gavin from Campus 360 to introduce himself and go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vinny. And again, I hope everyone who is joining us is staying safe, staying healthy. I know this is a difficult time for everyone. So hopefully this can provide a little bit of background on some cool technological developments, both with virtual reality and augmented reality that I'll be sharing with you today that can make things a little bit more exciting while you stay at home. So first, I'll talk about sort of the relevant aspects of this technology, a little bit of background on our work and the things that we do, as well as sort of what you can expect from this technology over the next couple of years. And finally, sort of how you can kind of use it at your centers and with student engagement, both in the current situation, sort of doing it remotely, as well as the future when you're actually able to host your events again. So very quickly, so I'm with an organization called Campus 360. We actually started building this technology about 3 years ago to help enhance the campus experience and make it a little bit more exciting for institutions that wanted to do virtual campus visits. Now, part of that was stemmed from something that's called the web VR revolution. So I'll talk to you a little bit about sort of what web VR means. But basically the premise was how to take these virtual images or virtual videos and make them accessible worldwide without requiring any downloads or any application compatibility. So you want to make it sort of a one-stop shop, sort of like you're watching Netflix or YouTube, where you just open it up and you can see any of the content that you wanted. So we were all about sort of that universal approach. We were really excited to see a post the other day from the Education USA Facebook and Instagram, sort of making that available worldwide. But I want to give you a little bit of context about sort of what changed in the past 3 years that made this technology so accessible. And so the first of which is the internet speed. And so when I talk about things like web VR, or what I'm later going to talk about is web-based AR, is made possible by what you've probably been hearing about. So first, we now have pretty universal access to 4G technology and increasingly access to 5G technology, though that's still more or less just developing, and then eventually, of course, 6G. Now, what that means is functionally data size is getting increasingly compressed, so we can send bigger packages in smaller sizes, and also that we're able to transmit data at a much, much higher speed. The reason why that's really interesting is you can remember, for example, when we had, say, 2G and we needed to send an image file. So we might be able to send email back and forth. We might be able to attach a file of a couple megabytes. But it was really hard to sort of stream videos. So we'd had to download videos. We had to download applications all the time. Once we had 3G, all of a sudden Twitter and Instagram were a lot more possible. So we could send pictures back and forth. We could send text back and forth really easily. Then now we have 4G, and all of a sudden pretty much cable is a thing of the past. We're now mostly watching streamed video content, streaming on TikTok, streaming on Netflix, streaming on any sort of web server it is that we're using in order to watch things online, streaming on YouTube, for instance. We're never downloading anything. Well, 5G takes that even farther. And the reason why that's important in the context of virtual reality is the only major difference between a 2D photo and a VR 3D photo is the size of that file. You're taking one image, which might be a single box, right? When we think of a single screen, whether it's a camera or it's a video or a television screen, it's a single box. And we're now exploding that into be 360 degrees, which is either a single image or multiple images that have been stitched together, which unfortunately means that the size, which originally is generally a 1:100 ratio. So a standard image makes a VR image that is 100 times as large, or a standard video makes a VR video, which is about 100 times as large. It's actually a little bit more than that due to frame rate. And so as a result, these are really big files. And so once we get to 4G, we're able to adequately transmit photos. And now once we get to 5G, we can start adequately transmitting virtual reality videos, which is where things get exciting. So that's one of the major developments that have changed. And as time goes by, you're going to start seeing this technology occur a lot faster, in the same way that sort of video streaming took off in the last 3 years. You're now going to start seeing augmented and virtual reality take off in the next, say, 3 to 4 years. The second is filming has become very affordable. So I'm going to show you in a little bit just sort of how easy this has become, because you might find it fun to do it in your own centers, where you can actually, with an add-on to just the simple iPhone, get a little adapter which allows you to take virtual reality videos and virtual reality photos. And almost all of the upcoming next generation phones actually have the ability of taking virtual reality content directly from the device. So it's pretty exciting to see sort of how that's emerging. Whereas a standalone camera, which used to cost around $2,000–$3,000, now costs as low as $300 to $400 for virtual reality content, which is pretty exciting. Finally, multi-platform accessibility is becoming a thing. So instead of it being very difficult, for example, oh, you want to access a virtual tour, you have to download something, or oh, you want to access virtual reality content, you have to download something. Now that's increasingly not the case, which is pretty exciting. So before I dive into some of the technologies, I thought I'd share with you sort of some of the initial places where we're already seeing this technology happen. The first is probably the most exciting, where actually people are running offline fairs, and I'm sure some of you had received these cardboard headsets that are able to enable any cell phone or any device to become a nominal VR headset. We'll go over that in a little bit later, but that's one of the ways where virtual reality content is getting really exciting and really accessible. The second is sort of walkthrough promotional videos. I'll show you examples of how universities are able to film those now with an iPhone, and can film really interesting sort of simple videos that you can then ultimately share with your students, which are kind of fun. The third are sort of self-guided tours or online virtual reality events, which can be pretty exciting on their own as well. So when I say sort of this content's become really accessible, or technology's become really accessible, the first thing is sort of how this content's captured. Again, I know this might not be immediately necessary for all of you, but it's something that you should understand so that you can ultimately tell admissions representatives. Also, it's a kind of an interesting way if you ever want to show off your centers or show off some of your the areas that you're in. So just to give you an idea of what these cameras look like, this is an example of an adapter that was actually created by an organization called Insta360. It's called a Nano. This is like an $80, $100 device. They get cheaper every single year. It already has the same kind of camera that you could, or it has the same quality of camera that would have cost $2,000 3 years ago if you wanted to get this as a standalone device. So it's kind of cool that it's come so far in such a short time. Goes straight on your iPhone, and it allows you to take 360 images that simply, right? So $80 adapter, you instantly can get 4K, pretty high resolution virtual reality videos, virtual reality and images as well. This is an example, slightly higher grade of what's called an Insta360 One X. When we work with universities, this is sort of their go-to. It has a little bit more features, a little bit more maneuverability. It can get attached to a nice long selfie stick, so it gets you able to take a couple of bit more exciting shots. So a couple of different options there. This is an example of the GoPro Fusion and the GoPro Max. These are some interesting examples, just again, other cameras that people are using that are automatically stitching these videos together. So once upon a time, the way that this was done, believe it or not, is they would take a bunch of cameras, GoPro cameras, and put them in a circle and take a picture like that and then stitch all the images together. Well, we've come a long way since then. Now there's a 180-degree camera on the front, a 180-degree camera on the back. They take the images together and automatically stitch them, which is kind of cool, which gives you that really easy access to virtual reality content. I'll show you a couple of examples of that shortly. I just want to give you a basis of the technology first. Now, the reason why I said web VR and that web image is so important is when I talk about being able to have access on any platform or any device. So you can see, of course, there are some individuals who are still going to want to be able to have access on a computer or a browser. I'll show you an example of that shortly. But also, there's ways that you can leverage that exact same technology without downloading anything on a cell phone, on a tablet, and of course, in a VR headset. So before I sort of dive into examples of sort of what those different technologies are, I'll actually now go ahead and show you some of examples of sort of what this virtual reality content looks like. So at Campus 360, we allow any university to send us VR images for free, and we upload them for them. So just to give you an idea of sort of what that means, let's take a look. This is an example of Columbia University. And one of the cool things, I'm going to be showing you this on a browser, but I hope at some point I can walk you through on what this will look like on a device, either a cell phone or a tablet. So if you do at this point in time, this is the one time I'm actually going to encourage you to do this, please do feel free to take out your phone during this presentation and open up on whatever standard browser that you use and just go to campus360.org. When you do that, you're going to see a variety of different universities there. You can either follow me or pick a university of your choice. Now, if you're doing that on a computer, then it's going to look like this, where I actually guide through a VR image with my mouse. And I'm actually using this, like controlling it by holding on with the mouse and dragging around in different ways. Now, one of the interesting things about VR content is that it can be stitched together in different ways. So you can see now I'm looking at it this way. This is like kind of interesting, but what becomes important is how it's overlaid over the real world. So I can actually then, for example, have these arrows, and these were something that was added by the campus itself. And we can actually walk around Columbia University by clicking on the arrows and going around. Of course, this happened to be filmed on a very, very beautiful day. So you get a nice idea of all the flowers and sort of the beautiful trees that are outside in the campus. So this happened to be filmed in spring. But there's also plenty of opportunities where they can be filmed in other times. But for those that I've seen a very large number of beautiful winter shots as well. Now, let's say we didn't want to walk to a given area. We can actually click on the Places button here below and actually have it teleport us inside or teleport us to a given location. So let's say we want to go look inside one of the halls and there happens to be an image available there. I can actually just go ahead and click on the Places button and it's going to take me there directly. So I don't actually have to go to each individual location on my own. It can actually take me. So you can see this is a beautiful image of inside Low Library Memorial Hall, which is quite nice. So I can get an idea of the different areas on the campus just by clicking on that. Now, another thing that we can do, so let's say we're going to go in again from the campus. We'll go enter it again. So you guys feel free to follow me on your phones as well. I want to show you a couple of other cool features that you can have for your students. The second is you're going to see these interesting little blue bubbles, and they're going to pop up in a couple of different locations and different tours. What these are interactive stories. We call them VR stories that are basically 2D content that's overlaid on top of 3D content. You'll see this in a couple of different VR engines, and it allows you to click on them. In the web-based version, I'm going to click on it with my mouse. In a tablet-based version, I'm going to go ahead and click on it in my finger. And so I'll give you an example. I'm using an iPad here, so you can see I'm in the same situation. I personally like the iPad version a lot for fairs if you're hosting normal events. It's also a little bit better for parents because parents are able to kind of navigate this a little bit more easily. So like, for example, they can go to the front, they can pick the campus that they would like. There's lots of campuses. They can search for them by name, or they can just pick the school that they want. Let's go back so I can show you exactly what that looks like. They then click on the school they want to enter, and they say, okay. They have to give the device permission, and then they can go ahead and scroll. They can still travel by pressing on the arrows the same way if they wanted to, which is going to take them to different locations of the campus. And just give them that sort of standard feel of kind of walking around, even though they're not actually there in person. Now, if they open up the stories on a tablet, it's going to look a little bit differently, which I'm going to show you now. If they open up here, give me a second. Well, I'll actually just show you. They can actually go ahead and click on individual images that they would like to open. They can click on this button here in the bottom right-hand corner, which is going to open it up and give me a full explanation of that story. I can actually, if I want to get a deeper view of some of these images, because I can't see it from quite so far away, I can go ahead and open it nice and big. Some schools are doing some really interesting things where they're actually making these images either interactive or actually making them videos. And so you can actually see a video here in 2D on top of sort of that 3D apparatus, which is pretty interesting. Other schools are actually recording students that are actually reading some of this content for those that actually want to have it written in. So it really is up to the campus how much they want to really play with the engine. There's all sorts of things that they can do. In addition, for those that are interested, it does have the ability, again, of course, to overlay the campus map. This, in a world where someone is still trying to figure out sort of where they are on campus, whether they can go there or not, this is just an interesting way for them to get some perspective on sort of what that looks like. So here's another example of another campus. This is an example with NJIT where they actually labeled individual buildings at the bottom and gave people an idea of sort of the different locations that they can go to. But with NJIT, there's another thing that I wanted to show off that I thought they did a very, very good job of, which is creating virtual reality video content. So let me show you a couple of examples of that. Now, I am going to be showing you through Zoom. So Zoom isn't going to show video that well, but I will share you some of these links later. You can play on your own so you can actually see, where I'm actually now immersed inside of a video that's taking me through all the different labs of NJIT, which I thought was a really interesting use of the technology. Again, they're just using a standard virtual reality video headset. And while I'm in the labs, I can again look around and see all of the different facilities that the institution has, and even see students that can interact with me as well, of course, pre-recorded. Now, a couple of other examples that can be used are of student life, right? So some videos can be of like labs, other videos can be of the cafeteria. They also have a really interesting video of life on campus. So I can look around, I can see sort of what it would be like if I'm actually there on campus. I can have students playing football outside. I can see sort of the different things that they're doing, and it's also going to take me to different locations. This particular video will take me to different locations on campus as well. Now, if I was using a virtual reality headset, I would actually feel like I'm there with the students. So I can do that in a couple of different ways. One way, so I can either watch the video like this, or I can continue to watch the videos on a tablet, or I can actually use my cell phone, open up this exact same item or that same institution here on a tablet. And in the bottom left, you're going to see a very interesting icon that looks like one of these. So if you don't have one of these with you, that's okay. We're always happy to send you some. I'll show you examples of that later. But what you would do is on your cell phone, it's then going to open up if you press that into two interesting little eye holes. So I'm going to show you here that you might not see it clearly. Here in the top right, you're going to be able to see it, and I'm going to press that little button, and it's going to open up like this into two different eyes. The reason for that is while it looks very similar on both sides, that's actually two different angles of looking at the same photo in 360 degrees. So it's automatically correcting for your device. So because that's how we would see depth perception. Now, if I wanted to show this, I would then take my phone, stick it inside of this device, and then instantly be able to feel as if I was there. I'll hear the sounds of the videos. I can actually navigate throughout campus looking that way, or open up different stories by putting the little crosshair on top of those individual stories. Now, there's different ways that can be used. First, a student, if they're at home, can get one of these devices on Amazon or whatever they want for roughly 30 to 50 cents. They're very inexpensive. They're very accessible. At a fair, you can actually have them available for students so that they can actually visit the campuses that are there at a fair, or they can visit campuses that aren't there at the fair. Again, generally when I am providing these, I also make sure I have an iPad available for parents, because for some people, they'll get a little bit of vertigo. And for some people, I generally mean parents who aren't used to experiencing sort of a moving virtual reality space. It can be a little bit difficult for them to kind of really get accommodated to that. So generally having an iPad or having them just scroll with their finger on their phone is also another wonderful way for them to get a sort of a campus visit experience. So that's just something to keep in mind. A couple other things that individuals can do. So on here on the left, there's a couple of other things that are useful that you should know. First is you can enter into full screen mode. So full screen mode is super interesting if you really just want to get that full immersive effect. The iPad will automatically open up to full screen mode, but on the browser, it still gives you a little bit more control. So that's something that you can look at. They can actually share different images or locations here on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter directly from the tour itself. So if there's something you're interested in or you have a question, you can always do that. You can contact the admissions for the schools that have set that up. And it's totally up to the school whether or not they've allowed you to contact them, but you can if they've done that. You can toggle the hotspots on and off if you want. whether or not you press this button. So you can see on the ground here, if I press it, the arrow's here. If I turn it off, now the arrow is gone. And the reason they do that is so if you want to have a sort of a completely unblocked view of a different image, you can turn those off, especially if there is a lot of different stories that are set up by the university. Finally, you can actually toggle the user interface into different languages. Currently, we have it set up for English and Chinese, though we're quickly adding other languages as well. Of course, not as much for the parents, mostly, or not really for the students, but mostly for the parents. So they have access to all of these things in their native language. So that gives you a little bit of context, sort of the different tools that are available for you on Campus 360. Now, they can always search, they can always look by different countries, but that gives you a different idea of sort of how those elements work. Now, another thing I wanted to show off are how some schools are leveraging virtual reality video, which I thought there's many different ways to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. One way is the example I just showed you with NGIT, where they're actually embedding it into a virtual tour. Another really interesting way that I've been seeing it done is when they're creating almost like a promotional video or introductory video that can actually be cut in the exact same way that a traditional video would be made. So they're just filming it with a virtual reality camera. So any of the examples I showed you. Some of the very best cameras now are actually 8K definition, which is pretty remarkable. They're not even that expensive. Like an $800, $900 camera for like 8K is pretty remarkable immersive video. And you can then get basically these videos. I'm not gonna, I won't take you through an entire video, but this is an example where you can show off cafeteria, you can show off classrooms, you can show off dorms where you can just sort of see people hanging out. And you can overlay audio on top of it. You can show different areas or activities on campus. I've paused this, but you can actually have it play as well. The reason I pause it is so you don't actually see all of these things flying through Zoom, but I can share with you examples. And the reason why this is super cool is not only can it then be cut into individual 10, 15-second clips and put into a tour, but actually stitched together in a full 2 to 3 minute content piece, which then can actually either be streamed on YouTube or Vimeo, or actually put onto a cell phone or iPhone device. So it makes it instantly accessible and creates sort of a really immersive sort of experience that people can then sort of view from at a fair or view at home, however they want to do it. So different ways of engaging with the video content. I'd say people are still exploring with all the options available to them. And it's something that I think you're gonna see more and more of as time goes on. So just a couple of other things that I wanted to mention to you, just so you see just sort of how cool this is getting, and then I'm going to take you a little bit back to sort of what does this mean for your centers. What you've heard me say a couple of times, VR and AR. So VR is so far most of what I've shown you. It's where we have 360-degree photos, 360-degree videos. There's special effects that can be entered into those, but in every instance, it's taking you somewhere that you are not at the moment. Now, in the future, we're getting to the point where not only can we go fully in the physical world or fully in the virtual world, but there's a hybrid, which some people are calling augmented reality, AR. Now, AR, for those of you that have heard of a very famous game called Pokemon Go, right? Where you could use your cell phone and you could capture Pokemon that obviously don't exist in the real world, but exist in this virtual world overlaid on the physical world. Now that is a perfect example of AR, and that's basically where the world's going. So right now, the same campus technology that I just showed you that allows individuals to create virtual experiences in the sense that they're creating VR that you can visit whether you're in Tokyo or you're in Seoul, is now actually able to overlay on their campus if you ever have students visit the campus as well. So this is, again, not something that you're going to see a lot of right away, but soon you're going to start seeing this pop up. I'm just sharing it sort of as a little tidbit of sort of what this technology is going to mean long-term, both for campuses and life in general, where you can actually now see the virtual reality stories that I just showed you, using Columbia as an example, overlaid on top of the real world in the same way that you would see a Pokemon if we were playing Pokemon Go. And so I can see it on a cell phone, or I can see it with an AR headset. So it's interesting to sort of see just how close we are. This technology already is accessible, totally exists, is already integrated into the systems, though it's going to be probably another 2 to 3 years until this becomes fully sort of available everywhere. But this is going to be really interesting, where you can have individuals who are first sort of experiencing in VR, but then they actually go there into the real place and can still see those same pop-ups, that same information, actually by experiencing it overlaid on top of the real world as well. So anyway, so just an interesting little tidbit, not super immediate, something you need to know right away, but something that you should be aware of, that it's happening and is going to be super important over the next couple of years. You're soon going to be walking down streets and being able to see the sort of these virtual worlds overlaid on top of the physical world, and that the technology is already accessible. Now, going back to sort of what this means for your center. So for many of you, this is probably still, most of you will still access VR content through a 2D lens. It's not the greatest, but the reality is it's going to take a while for people to evolve to sort of that next step. So in most cases, what that means is you're getting sort of these fully immersive 360 panoramas in the form of an iPad or a phone. So I'm in a 360 experience, but I'm still looking at it through a 2D lens. That's going to be true for a little while. Now, of course, they do make full-fledged virtual reality headsets. These are 3 of the most popular ones that exist right now. The Vive Cosmos, the Oculus Quest, and the Sony VR headset. Now, most people, here's an example. This is an Oculus Quest. It goes right over your head, and it provides a deeper perspective. So this one in particular will provide 120 degrees of view. So you don't get your full 180 degrees. So it cuts off roughly here. So you're not getting a full spectrum of view. But obviously it's a lot greater than what a cell phone gives you and what that cell phone VR headset will provide. So this is strictly going to be able to provide a view up here, as opposed to having that fully immersive experience. Of course, not even with the same definition. Now, most students are not buying these for visiting campuses. Most students are buying these for Beat Saber, for fighting Darth Vader, which is now like, you can actually like play a really awesome Star Wars game, and a variety of other games. So they're super exciting, but they're mostly being done for virtual reality video game content. That being said, just as an example, China sold over 35 million headsets just last year. And most in the United States, we've actually sold out now due to quarantine of both Oculus Quests and HTC Vives. It's showing you, just because people are stuck staying home, it's actually been extraordinary for distributing this content all over the place. And for those of you that are just getting used to it, might be something you could think about having available in your centers. Now, if you are using these for multiple people, there's a variety of cleaners that are used, of course, that make it very important. But actually, they make these eye protectors that are now very popular at VR conferences, where you actually one-time use sort of use those protectors like this, and then people can look through those lenses. Some people might even now, considering coronavirus, consider getting those even for the cardboard headsets, or giving away the cardboard headsets when you're done, or disposing with them when they're done. Anyway, just something to be looking forward to, because entering, if you haven't already had an opportunity to use one of these headsets, they're all relatively similar. I personally like the Quest the most. I highly recommend it, both just to see just how amazing this technology is getting and how accessible it is. If you're not so into the games, check out Google Earth. It'll make geography the most exciting thing you've done in a very long time, because you can actually play with the earth in your hands, open it up, close it, find your house. It's actually quite remarkable just to see how that technology is evolving. Now, aside from this VR headsets, like I mentioned, we now are entering the age of AR, or augmented reality. Now, this won't necessarily be something that you need right away at your centers, because this, of course, is for people that are in a location in person. But just so you know that this is available, because these technologies lay over on top of each other. Right now, most people access AR with their cell phones. So most people, when they're playing Pokemon Go or anything, are using their cell phones to access that virtual world. Now, right now, there are actually 4 different VR AR headsets. The most popular is Microsoft HoloLens, followed by Unreal, Vuzix, and Epson, which all roughly cost, say, $400 to $600. But kids are, again, buying these. So instead of playing Pokemon Go with their cell phone, they're actually able to see it overlaid on top of the real world. The most popular game outside of Pokemon Go is actually Harry Potter, where they actually are playing Harry Potter and seeing wizards and spells and creatures overlaid on top of the real world. So again, it's sort of one of these situations where video games are very much propelling the technology, but it's been quite extraordinary. And we're already able to see sort of what this is going to look like, where we have these glasses that we can just look at and see a virtual world overlaid on top of the physical world. And this is not the far, far future. This is 2-3 years away, and something you should be thinking about. Now, of course, we're not there yet. So in the meantime, we are mostly using these cardboard headsets. I've been encouraging institutions to give them away as swag. They don't last a super long time. A cardboard headset takes a little bit of a beating after, I don't know, 50 uses or so. But they're really great swag for universities. And of course, we're always happy to send some. We have some Campus 360 cardboard headsets we're happy to send to any of your centers for any upcoming fairs that you have. But a student just accesses them by using their phone, opens up, they don't have to download anything. They go to Safari, Chrome, whatever it is they're using, and just finds that university or any university, and then can instantly have a virtual reality headset of their own. Again, not quite as cool as a Quest or a Cosmos, but a really good step in the right direction. So it gives you an idea sort of how they can access it and how they can leverage some of those technologies. So I want to give us some time to sort of answer any questions you have, but hopefully that was a very easy overview of sort of how this virtual reality technology can be used. So if you do, a couple of things. First, we have a video that talks about some of the different features that I just showed you that you're always welcome to share with counselors. This is, again, totally free, available to students, available to counselors, available to universities. So they can watch that video by clicking the link here. It'll just take them through sort of the steps of how they would do this. For universities that are just learning how to create VR content, the biggest issue we're having is that many of them are scared. They're still they've been brainwashed a little bit to believe that virtual reality content is scary or it's hard or it's beyond them. And it's none of those things. In fact, it's gotten so easy that a student ambassador with a $100 phone attachment can go get some pretty solid content. I mean, maybe not top of the line content, so it's some pretty solid VR images and photos, which are instantly available to load online just by emailing them. They actually come out in JPEG format now, just an overlapped JPEG image format. So super easy. If you have any schools that want to get a couple of images, they can email them to us and we'll make them online instantly. So yeah, so if you have any additional questions, feel free to let me know. We'll open up to Q&A now. But hopefully that helped you understand a little bit more about sort of VR content, images, and what's to come in the future.